Okay, and we are officially live. So we're gonna let people, kind of come in, and I'm gonna tweet this out and let people know to join the stream.
Yeah, I'll
That's,
I'll retweet your tweet and then
yeah.
I'll grab the link and put it in the Vinmanji Discord server.
Okay, let's see that. Yeah, because the tweet will like there's a tweet itself that'll just show the video on Twitter, but I don't know if people can join the chat from there. So if they want to join the chat, they have to I think just go on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see that. Okay. It'll be like really confusing, but yeah, well, I just retweeted it. Streaming now, join the chat. Cool. So that's done. Hey guys, welcome to the chat or stream. Today we're going to be talking about Kingdom Hearts, everyone's favorite game.
Hello.
Are you also able to like hover over comments and click them? Just want to make sure you can do that too. Do you have that option?
How do you do that? Did you just click on it?
Yeah, like it's supposed to.
No, I don't.
I guess it's only me. All right, that
makes sense.
Yeah. All right, so we got a few people in, and so I guess we could just start. So welcome to the Jess Weaves podcast. As those of you who have been here before, I'm your host, Onimaru, and this week I've got joining me fellow anituber and streamer and fellow Kingdom Hearts fan, Vindy.
Hello, it's me.
So I brought you in because I've seen you talk about Kingdom Hearts before, and you seem very passionate about it. You enjoy the franchise, from what I know.
Yeah, it's probably my favorite video game series, and Kingdom Hearts 3 is like my favorite game. So I'm pretty set in my my love of Kingdom Hearts, I think, at this point.
Yeah, no, I thought that would pretty much make for a good conversation because I like Kingdom Hearts was like my an emphasis on past tense favorite video game franchise. I really enjoyed it, but I had mixed feelings about 3, and I think I talked with you a little bit about it before, and I was like, you know what, let's just talk about it because I feel like you feel very strongly positive. You're more positive about 3 than most people.
Yeah, it still surprises me kind of. Well, because when we talked about it before, you had mentioned that like your issues were mainly the like the gameplay side of things.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people I saw when the game came out had issues with the story. And that blew my mind because like I have like almost no issues with the way the story was handled. I thought it was really good. And over time, I think I've reached some things with the game that I liked more in other games. But for the most part, I still am really positive on that game. And it surprised me to hear so much negativity when the game came out.
Like after, like I also vaguely remembered, but I was satisfied. I'm going to put the words like the emphasis on I was satisfied with what I got story-wise with Kingdom Hearts 3. But after, and just for the viewers and people listening in, right before this, or like last night, I started rewatching, and I was telling Vindy this, all of the cutscenes from Kingdom Hearts 3 to just kind of refresh myself, and it's been a while. So I pulled up like a 21-hour video with the gameplay intermixed to kind of remember what happened. And as I was watching it, I could see what people's issues with the story could be, and I could see like some things that I was like, even like, okay, like I was still in the end satisfied with it, but I could see why it people didn't enjoy it, and I could see, especially for people who did not play the spin-off games and just jumped to 3, like why it would be like, okay, what is this?
Yeah, that I do understand, and I think that's kind of a problem. Like it's interesting to me because Nomura said one time in an interview that like he doesn't consider them like mainline and then like he considers everything that comes out, including the fucking gotcha game, which I've started playing recently.
Yeah.
He considers them all mainline games. It's just there's the numbered and non-numbered, and the only thing that decides whether or not a Kingdom Hearts game has a number tied to it is if your main party is Sora, Donald, and Goofy, or it was something like that, which is like insane because like if you have someone that gets into the series, they're gonna play 1. Okay, then I play 2, and it's like no. You have to play Recom, then 2, then
There's
these
actually
other games.
Also something cool I found out later, and I don't remember exactly. That there's something about the way he does the title, like the logos. Like mainline games have a certain thing to them, and like spin-off games, like I forgot what it was, but there's a certain identifier of what's a spin-off and what's a mainline game.
Yeah, he does a lot of that, and it's something where it's like it's really cool when you get into it. But because I remember I went to the midnight release for 3, and there were people in line who were saying like, "Oh, I've been waiting 13 years or whatever for Kingdom Hearts 3. I haven't played any of those other games though." And I remember my head being
13
like,
darknesses.
"You're not going to understand anything that happens."
I didn't get the people like I get the excitement, but I really didn't understand the people who were so excited for 3 but didn't play any of the games in between. And I'm not saying this as like an elitist, like, oh, you don't understand the story, but I'm like, those were main story games. The spin-off games were valid like main entry games.
I think you could argue that like the one of the like Dream Drop Distance is probably more important to the overarching story of like the first 3 numbered titles than Kingdom Hearts 1 is.
Yeah.
Like more happens in that game.
In Dream Drop Distance that leads like, but that's why I got Dream Drop Distance, because it literally said, or in an interview or somewhere it said like, oh, this directly ties into 3. Like the stuff that happens in here is a direct continuation of 2 and really will go into what 3 is going to be about.
And 3 picks up on the final cutscene of Dream Drop. So like you have to have played Dream Drop to just to, I think, like get the full experience of like to understand it. And so it's funny because people like to say, oh, Kingdom Hearts is so complicated, it's so convoluted. And I feel like it's not if you play everything, right? If you play everything and you watch the cutscenes, everything's explained pretty straightforward.
Okay. I'm going to argue that it got a little complicated, but you know, I think it does help if you did play all the games. And I'm not going to say like into the level that people are like kind of completely mocking it, like, oh, it's so complicated, this game never made sense. It's like, no, I just feel like some things probably did get a little complicated because, and I was paying attention to the cutscenes, I was playing the game, but in Dream Drop Distance, and I think we should back up a bit after this and go back to like 1 and maybe kind of, you know, but in Dream Drop Distance, there was a certain point, and I remember playing it, and I was like going through all the, where I was even like, what the fuck?
I know what you're talking about because I remember thinking the exact same thing in that game. So like, I think I know the exact cutscene you're talking about.
I think it was, and mind you, there was some hype battles. I really enjoyed Dream Drop Distance. I love playing as Riku. You know, I think, and there was like, I was fighting. It was so super cool. I was back-to-back boss battle, Ansem, then Xemnas. Yeah. And it was 1 a.m. and I think I was till 7 a.m. like trying to, I think I would keep beating Ansem, but I wasn't beating Xemnas. And I was like,
yeah, because you had to do both of them, and they're both so hard in different ways.
Yeah. And I'm like, this is so epic, but this is so hard. And whatever. And there was like a cutscene in between or after where you get fucking young Xehanort like coming from the past or somewhere, and there's like multiples of him, and I'm like, okay, what the fuck?
There's like a 25-minute cutscene where like then fucking oh my god, Zigbar shows up and he's talking about everyone's plan, and then young Xehanort shows up and you're like, okay, hold on. But then I think like by the end of the game, and then by the time you start 3, I think it's good, but it's like there's definitely that like one cutscene you're like, what is happening?
Yeah, because it showed young Xehanort, but then it also showed him on Destiny Islands, and then there's another hooded Xehanort, and I think that was Old Man Xehanort, or that was young Xehanort, or maybe it was the same version of Xehanort that was there all along, and I'm like, why is he there? You know, it was, I could see why, and I feel like 3 really and maybe it didn't start with 3, but I feel like 3 really doubled down on this whole not just with Xehanort, but just with everyone else, alternate versions of yourself, like facing your past, like all these other selves of you. And I think that's what, for someone that hasn't, especially for someone that hasn't been keeping track of this, it's like super confusing. It's like, okay, why is there 2 Soras? Like, for example, I was right before this, I was refreshing myself on just exactly who Xion was, because I did play 358 and a half days, but I never fully understood. And I'm reading the description, Xion is, derived from Sora. She's an imperfect replica of Sora of his memories of Kairi.
Right.
And I'm like, how do you explain that to people?
I remember I was driving my little brother somewhere, right? And I was just talking about Kingdom Hearts. And I was intentionally explaining it a little bit more complicated than it was, because it is funny to do that. But he was completely lost. Like, he had no idea what was going on, because I was like, and then you have Sora, and then Sora, he loses his memories, and so he goes away, and so then Sora's nobody, which is his body without a heart, is there. And that's Roxas. And then Roxas grows a heart. And then Roxas is a person. And then Roxas is inside Sora. And it was just, you can make it a lot more confusing. And so I think, especially in the terminology, it can get, because again, the fact that a heartless is a heart without a body and a nobody is a body without a heart, I can see catching people right off the bat. And that's like one of the basic things in the series.
Like, there was even a scene where I even got confused in 3. Where, well, I think they were trying to joke about it too, with like in the game where Lee/Axel, he's like, oh, nobody like remembers me, or like I gotta explain it to Roxas or whatever, and then Ventus is like, oh, I know who you are, Lee, and he's like, oh, you remember me? And he's like, yeah, we're friends, and then I think he mentions, and then they say like, oh, Axel, and he's like, Axel, who's Axel? And then I had to like remember, like, wait, did Ventus know Lee before? And then it was in Birth by Sleep. They knew each other as kids, but he doesn't actually know like the Axel, like nobody version. He doesn't have Roxas's memories. So it's like, and then Jiminy Cricket comes out. It's like, all right, listen, guys, you go to your gummy phone. We got summaries for everyone. Just read up on it. We good. We'll figure this out. Like, everybody just needs to read a summary. Because like I was still very, and me personally, I was still very on board with the whole like different versions of ourselves, how it all connects in Birth by Sleep. Was it Birth by Sleep? Yeah, because I was in love like with Birth by Sleep. Thought it was a phenomenal game, but the confusing bit was Vanitas/Ventus. Vanitas looking like Sora. Being that, like, why does he look like that? And I don't feel like 3 even tried to remedy it. It was just kind of like, it just is what it is.
I think it was explained somewhere. I'm not the best on some of the deep stuff. Generally, I just ask someone who I know is, and I know Blue Knight's in chat, and he'll know. But I think it has to do with the fact that, because Ventus's heart is connected to Sora's, right? Which is why Roxas looks like Ventus.
Right.
And so I think that part of the deal of their hearts being connected is when Vanitas came into being, he looks like Sora. Yeah, okay, that's what, yeah.
All right, so he says Vanitas looks like Sora because Sora reflected the part of Ventus's heart that Vanitas used to be. See, right, I get that. But here is where the confusion is, because, and again, this could be a timey-wimey thing, but when Xehanort in Birth by Sleep split them apart, that was before, from my understanding, before Ventus's heart was fragmented and before it went to Sora. So the part he split from him already looked like Sora before he made that connection to Sora. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's one of those things that's like, if you look really into it, it's like, I don't know. And you kind of just have to be like, it is what it is. But in Birth by Sleep, I was still on board. I was still like theorizing, like, oh, that's super cool. I wonder what it means. Like, why does he look like Sora? Why does, but then after that, and then once you see it all come together in Kingdom Hearts 3, like the different versions of the characters, and I personally feel like Kingdom Hearts 3 kind of struggles to kind of like make sense out of all the other characters, like why they all kind of exist, sort of. I'm talking specifically about the replicas and stuff like that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to make it confusing. Like I do know why, there are Birth by Sleep characters and why, all of that. But just kind of like how they can all kind of coexist in the ones that are
the same
or
person
duplicates or whatever. And it kind of just ends up just being like, you know what, they just do, and that's kind of it. And if you just run with it, and you'll be okay with it. Yeah,
well, it's because some of them, it's so, because I think it can get a little confusing sometimes, because some of the replicas, like, because technically Roxas and Xion are replicas, right? And what they have is they have the hearts of Roxas and Xion in them. But then you have replica Riku, who is made not out of Riku's heart, but out of Riku's memories from Namine, to make replica. So it's like, there is like, there's some confusion where, like, I think the idea of who's, like, how are all these replicas here is, a little bit a little wild.
Yeah, and I think that's where it gets a little lost on people. But at the end of the day, what made me satisfied with Kingdom Hearts 3, or maybe fine with it, is that part of me I was happy that these characters reunited. I was happy that I got the closure that I wanted for like 7 or however many years since I played these games, with 358.5, Birth by Sleep. And I was like, oh, okay, they're finally together, finally they're back. I can't be mad at it. This is what I wanted story-wise. I literally, I'm playing the whole fucking game, going through the worlds. I'm like, okay, yeah, but give me more of Aqua. Give me more of the World of Darkness.
I was the entire time, because Roxas is my favorite Kingdom Hearts character, and the entire time I was playing, I was like, where's Roxas? Give me Roxas. And Sora was like, all right, I need to find a way to get Roxas, like Roxas's heart, out of my body. I was like, yes, give me Roxas. And they really made me fucking wait on it. I was not happy.
And for me, it was like just waiting on Aqua. I loved freaking playing Aqua as a character. And then finally you get more about her, and then you get to play her. And I'm like, this is awesome. It's like a throwback. And actually what I noticed about Roxas specifically, now that you have both Ventus and Roxas back, like they're both different. Like they're both different characters. Yeah, they look the same, but I feel like Ventus, and it makes sense for when he kind of, I think, what was it, lost his heart or kind of, went away. He's more naive, more childish, kind of more like that. And then Roxas, you could tell like he's been through shit. So he's more of like a badass that's like, not that Ventus doesn't have that capability, but you could tell by Roxas's disposition that he's like, really like there to, save his friends or stand up for his friends, like that. What is accusing us of ignoring the chat? I pulled it up on screen.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I see it. I mean, I just what do you want me to talk about? What you desperately flirting with?
He just wants attention.
Oh yeah, makes sense.
So I don't know. Do you want to go back and kind of talk about 1?
Yeah, we can. I'm down for that. There were some people, Nanmanju is one of them, who have been playing 1 recently. And so I've been doing a lot. I've been talking a lot about Kingdom Hearts 1, and I haven't played it yet. I want to at some points do a series on my channel where I kind of play every Kingdom Hearts game and then do like really in-depth videos on each one individually and like my thoughts on it. What I think are good about it, where I think the games improve, where I think, because I do think that all the games as they go, there's something, especially from 1, 2, and 3, there's like things in each of those games specifically that I wish were in more of the games that aren't. But I think ultimately where it is a good spot. But I do like, there are things in 1 that I like more than things in 2 and 3. And there's things in 2 that I like more than 1 and 3. And there's things in 3 I like more than 1 and 2. So it kind of,
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I just want to address real quick that
Mhm.
Blue Knight says Jesse McCartney also uses a different voice for Roxas and Ventus, uses a deeper voice for Roxas and a lighter voice for Ventus. I actually completely noticed that. It's he does have that shift, and I think that adds to, Roxas being that feel that Roxas is a little, different. He's seen shit. But yeah, so and then on to one. Yeah, there's things that I enjoyed about one. Definitely a lot of things I enjoyed in two. But there are things in one that I missed
Yeah.
not having in two, like dodge roll.
Uh, yeah. Well, because you could get dodge. I think the earliest that I've ever gotten dodge roll in a playthrough of 2 is the 1,000 Heartless fight.
Okay.
Because you get it through limit form. And it just takes it.
That's only in final mix, right?
Oh yeah, I've only played the final mix. I got into Kingdom Hearts like 2 years ago.
Okay.
Is when I first played all the games. So I've only played the final mix versions.
Yeah, I never played the final mix. I just found out about the whole final mix limit form recently, like a few days ago, and I was like, holy shit. I want to play final mix now.
I would recommend playing the fight because I think 1 final mix is a little bit better. I think 2 final mix, if you like 2 a lot, 2 final mix is like the best version of Kingdom Hearts 2. Like it has a Roxas boss fight. We'll get to 2, but
yeah. So back to 1. So I haven't actually played any of the final mixes, not the Birth by Sleep, not the 2 final mix, 1 final mix. I just, they weren't released at the time I got into it. I did, like you, get into Kingdom Hearts late as well. I didn't play it as a kid. I got into it like, I don't know, my junior year of high school in the summer. Like I borrowed someone's PS2 and I borrowed a friend's Kingdom Hearts copy, and I just played through 1. And then afterward, I was like, oh, I want to go to 2, but then someone was like, oh, you got to play Chain of Memories first. I'm like, do I really have to? It's like, no, it's relevant to the story. You got to play Chain of Memories. Like, okay, I got a Game Boy, or I got like a DS. I got a Game Boy Advance, or I got it like a DS, and I was like playing it, and I didn't like the card system. Like I wasn't feeling it. It just felt really annoying. But I'm like, I'll trudge through. I really want to know the story, and then the worst, like my luck, like the only luck, the worst thing happened. So my DS malfunctioned, it shut off, and I didn't save, or like my save file like completely got corrupted, and I had to start back from the beginning.
Ugh.
And I was like, you know what? Screw this. And then I just never picked it up again. And it wasn't until college where I was just talking with a friend, like during like a work study during the summer, where he's like, you never play Kingdom Hearts 2? I'm like, no, like, dude, it's amazing. And then he was just telling me all about it. And then I'm like, okay, all right, I want to play it. And he's like, he lent it to me, and then I just played 2, and then that was it. Like, yeah, I think 2 just completely, I enjoyed 1, but 2 just,
I definitely think 2 is that moment where the series goes from being like, okay, I enjoy Kingdom Hearts 1 a little, like, I think COM or Recom, if you play like the PS3 or PS4 version, is probably the worst game in the series. And then you get to 2, and it's like, okay, now it's only good games from here.
Yeah, no, 2 was really, really good. Like, I feel like 1 wasn't bad. Like, I liked Kingdom Hearts from 1, but I feel like 2, like 1 was fun because of the story and the adventure. It felt like a whole like adventure. But I never thought of it like as the gameplay was addicting. Like, it was never really a factor that was like, it was fun. It was like I dodge rolled and I did my moves, and that was cool, and it was cool. But I never like, because I played games for story. It wasn't until 2 where gameplay became such a factor. Like, dude, this game is fun to play. It has a lot of replay value. But I did enjoy 1. Some of my favorite boss battles, I think, was when I was fighting the Riku replica and like the Behemoth.
Oh,
right before you fight Riku, and I was literally dodge rolling like around the whole thing to just not die.
Yeah, that game, it took me a while to enjoy it because I think it probably aged not super well. I think there's something, it's kind of janky at times. I'm really not a fan of the worlds, like the Disney worlds themselves, I think are kind of confusing at times. Like Monstro and Deep Jungle, I just think are not very good. And then Atlantica is like one of the worst things I've ever done in my life.
Monstro. I remember Monstro, but I think Atlantica was just God. I hated swimming. I'm glad they fixed that in 2. You know,
Yeah.
the whole that you didn't have to deal with that. But I think the worst thing ever was, for some reason I decided, you know what? I saved like right before
Mhm.
the final boss battle. I'm like, shit, I need to prepare for this. I want to be ready. Like I want to be able to. I was afraid it was gonna be really hard. So I'm like, you know what? Let me go get the ultimate weapon. And then I spent like 2 weeks, like farming in like Atlantica,
Oh,
trying to get all the ingredients or for the recipe to get the ultimate weapon. I finally got the ultimate weapon, and then I'm like, okay, I'm ready. Let's do this. And then I don't know, it was like a 5 series boss battle. Like you
yeah,
kind of
because
just beat
it's
each,
all the anthems and
yeah,
he turns into a big
and
ship.
it was easy. And I was like, I don't even think I need. Like it was cool that I got the ultimate weapon,
Right.
but I'm like, I don't think I needed this. God damn it.
Yeah, it's super funny because the only one I've gotten it in is 2, and that's the only one I've done all the super bosses in.
Mm,
Because generally, I think the way it's kind of dealt with is like the ultimate weapon is not even necessary, but it's really like beneficial if you're going to be doing like all the bosses in like the later, like all the optional bosses that are like really hard.
yeah,
So
I think I wasn't even interested in doing optional bosses, so it was really a waste because I never did the
mhm.
optional bosses in Kingdom Hearts 1. You know, I heard about it later because, you know, it wasn't until like I tried once, like Sephiroth in Kingdom Hearts 1,
Mhm.
but it was just a miserable experience. Like I literally just walked, like I just started and then I just got one-shotted and then
Right.
that was it. I'm like, I had no chance to do anything. Um,
Yeah, that's how a lot of them are. Even when you're level 99, some of those fucking super bosses just one shot you. You're like, all right, I gotta die to this a billion times to learn it. That's the only way.
like I definitely think Kingdom Hearts 1 was the harder game. Like I feel
Oh
like it
yeah,
was more challenging.
I think it's probably the hard. Yeah, the only thing is magic is busted in that game because there's arrow, which is a spell that gives you okay. Here's everything it does. It's ridiculous. I don't know how this made it. Okay, it reduces damage. It makes your damage higher, and it does damage in like an area of effect around you while
Yeah.
it's active.
Yeah.
So arrows, like if you just keep pumping arrow, it helps a lot. And then there's a lot of other really good, useful spells. Um, but magic's the busted part of that game. But like everything else is fucking really hard in that game. So
Yeah, I remember like was it a little different? I think in 1 you could spam magic a lot more. Was that what it
yeah,
was?
because
Okay.
the magic system in 1, and this is my favorite. I think 1 has my favorite magic system in the series because the way it works is when you hit with your keyblade, you gain like the MP bars, and then using spells casts from the MP bars.
Yeah.
But instead of it being like, okay, now I'm out of MP until I either use an ether or I completely um, knock it out and then it has to refill, you can just gain it back by attacking. So there's kind of like this dual thing where you want to use magic and then go in and hit, and then you can use magic and go in and hit.
Yeah.
And I think that system kind of allows you to use both a lot more than in the other games where you have like the MP bar.
Yeah, yeah. Nah, I felt like I was spamming magic a lot more easily in 1, and then 2 was more of an adjustment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, but definitely like 1 still had, I think what 1 had going for it too, story wise at least, was a lot of the intrigue. You know, you had Ansem,
Yeah.
and you weren't kind of sure who he was. He was kind of this guy, and then there was like this whole, oh, Ansem the Wise, who's that? How did they connect? And you know, it was pretty straightforward.
Yeah, there's a lot of instead of like the later games, which kind of turn a lot more into answering questions. I definitely think 1 proposed a lot of questions, and that's what I think is interesting now in Kingdom Hearts is that we're back to we have more questions than things we have answered about like the future of the series, which is
Yeah.
really exciting.
Yeah, like you know, it's only getting more I'm gonna say intricate with the stuff going
Yeah,
on, but I'm just a sucker for all the lore and like, you know, like I don't know, like all the backstory. You know, when I was introduced to that in Birth by Sleep, like the Keyblade War, the Keyblade Masters, I'm like, oh my god, this is so cool. But before that, so you know, is 2 your favorite Kingdom Hearts game?
no, 3 is.
3 is okay.
Two is I think my favorite gameplay wise. I mean I've played the numbered games twice each at this point. I think 2 is probably the best in terms of just like pure moment to moment gameplay. And I think especially in terms of boss fights, the way 2 works in a boss is really fucking good. It has a bunch of good systems that I like. And I think the tools at your disposal in 2, I think I like more than what you have in 3, although I still like what you have in 3.
Yeah, like I think the Sephiroth boss battle, optional boss battle in 2 was like one of the most fun like boss battles I've had. You know, that was really cool because it was challenging, but it was also like super fun because you could actually do something. You know, you could actually like, you know, move around, kind of dodge, beat him however you wanted.
Yeah, 2 has some ridiculously, because there's like Lingering Will, right? And that fight is probably like on the level of like the hard Kingdom Hearts 1 super bosses with his like he just has so many different moves. He's so fast, you almost have to predict what's coming. And then he does a thing that some bosses do where they can lock off your command menu, and so then you can't do anything, and it's like, okay, great. I love this.
Lingering Will was only in Final Mix, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, that's why.
Because so the Final Mix versions came out on PS2 in Japan and didn't come out here. They might have come out on the PS3, I think, but they came out on the PS2 in Japan, and so there they were just like the updated version of the game, right? The same way that like a lot of Square Enix games at the time got that. Like Final Fantasy X had like Final Fantasy X International, which was an updated version of that game. 12 got like the International Zodiac job system. So that was just a common thing at the time, I think, for Square to re-release like updated versions of their games.
Yeah.
And so Lingering Will, because normally what he likes to do is Nomura likes to make the big super boss in each Kingdom Hearts game kind of foreshadowing for the next Kingdom Hearts game. So in 1, it's in Clouded Sephiroth go to disappear. God, I wish it was Sora that instead of Sephiroth, but it's fine. I'll take it.
Yeah, you gotta get Final Fantasy characters first, then Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, and so then it's like an org member in 1, and then 2 is Lingering Will, which is, I mean, he shows up in 3, right? It's Terra's like heart or soul or whatever inside, or it's Terra's will technically inside his armor. So you go to the Keyblade graveyard and Terra's there. Yeah. And he thinks you're a threat. So then he fights you and then you beat him. And then he shows up in 3. And that's probably the
So, okay. So I have to talk about that. So, and again, this is how I feel about like, not Remind, because Remind just like adds a few more context for certain scenes, but just in 3 with what was going on, like I was watching the cutscenes back to back, especially like in the last battles, and it literally was almost every fucking battle something came out of nowhere, like to just save them or to do something, and like I didn't mind because. Like from a story perspective, I'm like, all right, but from like a fan perspective, it just felt like every KH fan's like wet dream. Like when fucking like the Lingering Will just came out to just defend against Terranor, I was like, oh my god!
I lost my shit when that happened. I could not believe it.
And he's using the ends of the Earth Keyblade. I'm like, oh my god! He turns it into a whip.
He does the moves to Terranor that he kicked my ass with in the boss battle.
Like, I have a lot of love. And I think I've made clear for Birth by Sleep, like but specifically Terra's route, because I played the shit. I think I played the shit out of that Terranort versus Lingering Will battle quite a few times. It was just pure fun, and just the badassness of his spirit stayed within the armor, and it was just like, no, I'm gonna like kick your ass, and that was just a super fun battle. So to see that like again in 3 was an awesome callback to that.
Yeah, no, there's a lot in that moment. I think I remember someone describing it as like the Avengers Endgame of like Kingdom Hearts like areas is the Keyblade Graveyard 3. And it's kind of true because it's just kind of like a bunch of just every character that you would want to see shows up. And like as a fan, that's all you really wanted out of this game. Was finally, it felt like since 2, there's been a bunch of games about other characters and about bringing all these other people in. And now finally they're here, and I played the full game. So I want to see all these characters that I've played. I've spent, over 100 hours playing their games. I want to see them come in and do cool stuff. I want to see them all together. And when you finally get that payoff, it was so fun as like a Kingdom Hearts fan. It's insane.
Yeah, no, there was like, I think the I don't know. I think it was extra scene in Reminder, a longer scene, elongated scene where they, Kyrie and Lee are facing off against Xemnas and Sykes, and then Shion is there in the hood, and they're kind of questioning like, oh, you got another guest with you, and then they're kind of questioning, why does she have a kingdom key? Who is she? And all that stuff, and they're kind of like trying to piece it all together, and that's kind of one of those, payoff moments. You want these characters to be interacting with these other characters from another game, and like questioning, oh, why does she have a kingdom key? Who is she? And how does this all relate? And so, again, all those series of battles felt like big payoff in terms of that, especially when Terranort was beating Sora and Aqua, and then Ventus, and then suddenly the Heartless of Terra in Heartless form just comes out, and it just rips off the thing sealing his mouth.
And it's payoff because the Heartless in Terra's form is in Kingdom Hearts 1, but you don't realize that at the time, right? Because I remember when I did that boss in Kingdom Hearts 1, I was like, oh my god, Ansem has a stand, because that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
And then you get there and you're like, wait.
It's funny that you say that, because I wasn't into JoJo's back then. So now I was seeing it recently because I was looking stuff up, and I was like, hey, that's kind of like a stand. So that was Terra all along, essentially, that Heartless that he used.
That's what I assumed it as. Is it was like the personification of Terra's heart, and the reason that Ansem's controlling it is because he's in control of Terra. Is at least what I thought it was. I could be wrong, but
we got a question from Blue Knight saying, "Did you guys read all the secret reports in 3?"
No,
I don't think I did. I think I might have read some of them. I was definitely interested, but I vaguely remember.
I always forget to read the Jiminy's Journal shit. That's like one step that like I just always forget to open up and do.
I do too, but sometimes I do go back because I feel like a lot of things weren't explained, so I did want answers in 3. But here's a question for you. So, kind of knowing, what happened in 2, kind of what came along with Birth by Sleep, because it definitely added a lot more lore, changed a lot of things that, pretty much made up what essentially, like, if you didn't play Birth by Sleep, that's a huge piece, as well as
it's the entirety of, it's like the setup kind of for everything that happens.
Yeah. So my question to you is, do you think Tetsuya Nomura had this planned out all along, maybe since 1 or 2, like that he was going to bring these elements in? Or do you think he's just kind of was adding them as he went along?
So I know that people have said that he's said in interviews that he doesn't plan everything. But I think that like by that, he means he doesn't plan every individual thing. I think there's a lot when you look at the early games, like when you go back to 1 after playing all the other games, and especially when you know about the Keyblade War and you know about some of these other things. And like there's organization members in 1 that like he had to have been planning at least like a rough map of what was going on, I think, throughout probably most of the Xehanort saga. And then he definitely had like the baselines of maybe not, exactly what Aqua looked like, and this is Aqua, and this is Ventus, and this is Xehanort. But I think he definitely had like an idea of where he was going and what had happened in the world. And then he probably expanded on that. But there's so much in those games that like there's the Ansem secret reports in 1, and there's a bunch of references, and the fact that the Keyblade Graveyard is in 2. Like he had to have known at least like a game in advance what he was planning to do for a lot of it.
Yeah, like I feel like he definitely doesn't probably doesn't hammer out the details as much, but he does have like like an overall idea, like you said. And like he definitely like I remember back in 2010 when just Birth by Sleep had come out and I had gotten it, and I read an interview with him because I wanted to, obviously I want the sequel, when is this going to continue? And an interview he did saying that Kingdom Hearts 3 would not be the last game. It's the last installment of the Xehanort saga, but there's still going to be a 4, and 4 will be the last game. Like, oh crap. 1, we're going to be waiting forever. But 2, back in 2010, he knew this. So he was already kind of having his roadmap of where he wanted to go.
Well, yeah, I think there's no way that at Birth by like I think you could even say that like when he finishes one numbered game, he's looking to the next one, right?
Yeah.
Because everything after 2 it almost builds so when you have 358 over 2 days, recoded, and then Birth by Sleep and Dream Drop, they almost fit so perfectly into building up to 3 that I think it would have been like impossible for him to not have had certain things in mind going into 3 with what he wanted kind of the setup to be and then the eventual payoff. Because I think he almost set it up in such a way where the way it paid off, it was like the only way it could have paid off, right? All these characters showing up the way they did is like the only way that could have happened. But he definitely kind of knew where he wanted to set things up and build into going into the game.
So, and I guess, so 3 being your favorite, you don't see any flaws in 3.
Oh no, I mean I have issues with it. I think that
and I guess you probably don't want to go into them because like already so many people have voiced negative opinions about 3,
well,
but
I have no problem talking about it because like I still think that there's more positives, but I think that especially like playing it on critical, there's some encounters that are just ridiculously annoying. I think that there's I don't know how much this is a flaw. I think some of the Disney worlds aren't as good, and I really missed the way Disney worlds worked in 2, where you go to everything twice. I thought was really good. And then just there's like some minor gameplay annoyances I have. Some of them were fixed after the game came out because like I really didn't like attractions in 3. I thought they were way too easy. They completely trivialized the gameplay. And then they added an update that allows you, I don't know if it's in all difficulties or at least in critical, but when I replayed, I could turn off attractions. So I just didn't play with attractions on.
That's pretty helpful because I hated the attractions. I just thought it was a cool concept, but it just added, I don't know, it just felt everything became super easy. It just became unnecessary. Like it's just like
it was so easy that I just immediately turned them off.
Yeah.
And I think that the bosses aren't as good. I mean, so I do have to say before someone says, I haven't played the Remind super bosses yet. I want to get to them. I keep meaning to, but I have other games I'm trying to play and other things I want to do. And at this point, I think I'm just going to save the limit cut fights in Yozora for after I play everything else. Like after I replay the entire series. But I think just the main story going through the bosses, I don't think they're as good as like 2's bosses. But I think overall, like once you get to the Keyblade Graveyard, the bosses get really good. I think the final boss is probably the best final boss in the series. And I mean, mainly I think the reason it's my favorite game, because it's not my favorite gameplay wise, right? If it was just the game, like if you just handed me no context, no story, 2 and then 3, I would like 2 more. But 3, especially with some of the scenes you get in Remind and some of the gameplay like scenarios that it puts you in that where you're not controlling Sora, are so good and were like, I think such powerful moments that I just can't not say it's my favorite. Like I have too much of a emotional attachment to the game.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with the again, like I said earlier, the story being part of it. A lot of, again, I told you a lot of my issues were gameplay. I definitely felt like I agree that the worlds, I don't know, they weren't as fun or it just felt like you were just checking off a box. Like I think I enjoyed the world. I probably enjoyed the most in that game was the Tangled world. But even then it was kind of like, it was sort of the same story as Tangled more or less. So it was just, I think it didn't feel any different.
Too many of the Disney worlds were just a rehash of the movie. Cause that was Tangled. That was the Pirates world, which is, I think gameplay wise is probably the best world because my 2 favorites were easily the Pirates world and Toy Box. But Toy Box is because that's like my favorite. Like as a kid, I would watch Toy Story on VHS, rewind it, and watch it again. So like I have a huge attachment to Toy Story. So just seeing Sora interact with Woody was enough for me to be happy. Like, I didn't need anything more.
You know, I wish I felt like that. Like I loved Toy Story as a kid. I had it in VHS too. I also had it in VHS. I watched it a lot. I loved Toy Story 1. I watched 2. I watched 3, but I really loved 1. And part of, what I liked about the Toy Story world is, like you're saying, you're getting to be in that world, seeing the characters, talking to Woody. But then, like, I don't know, like after being in the toy store for so long and getting destroyed by these robot things, it just got tedious. And I was like, again, I don't know if that's an actual valid criticism of the world, but it just wasn't as fun as I thought it would be.
I definitely think the mechs do hurt that world. I think that this is something that the game does in a couple worlds, where it has like a gameplay mechanic that's specific to that world that's really cool on first glance, right? Like, oh, I'm driving a pirate ship. I'm in a mech suit. But I think that it does take away, because ultimately what I want to be doing is the playing the game, right? Like, I want to be doing the gameplay part. And, the mech suits are really hard to pilot or they're really hard to beat if you're not in one. So you kind of got to get in them, and then you have to do the pirate ship. So
it's like at times it felt like Kingdom Hearts 3 was trying to explore these ideas, like mechanic ideas that, it didn't introduce earlier. So it was like, oh, let's try it in this game. But then it ended up feeling like a slog. It ended up feeling like, you have to kind of get through this to sort of, get to the part that you actually want to get to. So then it was like, this is unnecessary. And then we got a question from Numanji in the chat saying, what's the best Toy Story? Say the correct option. Well, I'm messing up my words. Unlike Vindy Vondo, what is the correct option? What's your favorite Toy Story?
I know I have the unpopular opinion on this.
You're going to say 2, aren't you?
No, I'm going to say 4.
Oh, see, I didn't watch 4.
I watched 4 a couple months ago, and it's up there. Like it's Coco and Toy Story 4 are the 2 hardest I think just a movie has ever made me cry. Like, that movie fucked me up. And a lot of people don't like it, and I kind of don't get why, because I think it's really fucking good.
I heard 4 was good, but I have never got around to it. I do have Disney Plus. I should probably check it out. I love Coco though. Love that movie.
Coco's really fucking good.
Okay, I won't give an answer. I'm going to say Toy Story 1 because I hold it very near and dear to my heart. I've watched it in English. I've watched it in Spanish. I don't know why. I think that's all I could get on VHS at the time. Okay, back to Kingdom Hearts 3. So in terms of the gameplay, again, a lot of annoyances. It felt like I was even disappointed by the Big Hero 6 world. Like, at least that one wasn't a rehash, so I'll give it that. Yeah. It was a little different. The characters did feel like they were interacting with Sora and, what was going on in his thing.
There was some gameplay-wise, I agree. Story-wise, there was that one really fucking cool scene where they're up on the sky, the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah.
And like Sora is up on a bridge eating ice cream with people, and he kind of gets a flash of Roxas's memories being up on the clock tower in Twilight Town. And that scene's really, really cool. I really like that scene. But I do agree that with how good Big Hero 6 as a movie was, I was excited for that world, and I was a little disappointed by that. Well,
San Francisco was just amazing. It's just kind of like, I guess my disappointment was you couldn't freely roam the world. Like, you were kept in the room, and it was a good explanation, like the headquarters. But you kind of had to be ready to kind of leave. And then when you left, it was sort of like, you're on a mission and kind of doing your thing. And then that was kind of it. So it was like, you just got to do the missions, and then you're kind of done with the world, and then you leave, and then that's kind of it.
Yeah. I'm gonna catch this before Blue Knight does, because I know he'll say it. Is you can roam it after you beat the world, but the only reason I did that is because when I went back through on Critical, I was trying to grab all the chests and all the collectibles and everything. Yeah. And so I had to go back into the world. But my first time through, the minute I was done with the world, because that's the last world you do. So at that point, you're like, all right, it's finally fucking time.
Yeah, no, that's
Give me the story.
But you just go. I was like, I just want to be done. But I was happy to be done. I was like, yes, all right, last world. But as a reflection of the game and what came before, I'm like, that's not a good look. I don't know, to feel like, I'm just kind of trudging through to finally get to the story. It's like,
yeah. I think it is sad as well because there one of the things I loved about two's Disney World is there's like this recurring element where Sora leaves the worlds and he says goodbye to all the people on the worlds, but he's always like, but we'll meet again. Our hearts are connected, right?
Yeah.
So I was expecting 3 to have some of the more like to carry over more worlds from 2 because I thought that that was like such a key part of 2 was Sora saying that like, you know, he'll be back because their hearts are connected, you know? And so I kind of expected to go to Aladdin and do Aladdin 3 or you know, maybe go to Atlantica again in some kind of way. And you didn't get that. And so that was kind of something that I was a little not like upset or disappointed with, but I do wish that, you know, I got the chance to go back to some of the other worlds instead of it being so many new worlds and the only returning one was Olympus.
Yeah, yeah. Like I felt, I definitely feel like that was a nice touch. I'm not as fresh on 2 as you are, but now that you're making me recall, I do feel like that was a nice touch of 2. Like it was a little more kind of trying to be heartfelt with that. Where here it's kind of like we just got to get through it, you know, like
Yeah.
you know everything that's kind of going on. And again, there was a lot of elements to juggle. You know, you got all these other things from the side games, all these other things going on with the other characters, the power of waking, you know, kind of, you know,
Right.
at that point you don't really care as much as about the Disney world as much about, you know, what's really going on with Xehanort and all of the darkness and stuff like that.
Right. Which is why, I mean, Nomura even said that that he didn't put Final Fantasy characters in the game because he said this game is about Kingdom Hearts characters. So I couldn't fit Final Fantasy characters in there. But that kind of shows that you can't have a Kingdom Hearts game without the Disney World. So even though this game is much more about the Kingdom Hearts characters, the Disney World still had to be there. And I think it's like, I mean, I think the best use of a Disney World in the game, story-wise, is probably Olympus because it could rely on the relationship that Sora and Herc have from the 2 previous games. So they know each other and they're friends and you get to see them interact. And then in all the other ones, he's like meeting people. And then sometimes they kind of don't really do much.
Yeah. I do have 2 questions actually about the Kingdom Hearts, like the way the story is. Like moving a little bit now, because I think we've said our piece on the gameplay for the most part. A little wonky, not perfect, but it wasn't awful. You know, there was some fun bits and some cool things you can do. And the Remind, you know, looks like it. I heard you can dual wield with Sora in that, so
yeah, you can.
That's exciting.
It's really cool. There's
I questioned that like recently. Like, wait, why couldn't I dual wield with Sora in you know, in 3? And it's like, oh no, the DLC you can. I'm like, okay, great. And I did enjoy Riku's car key as a Keyblade.
I love his car key. I just love Keyblade. I love a lot of the Keyblade designs, and I got to use Oblivion, which made me so fucking happy because you could unlock it, starting with Remind, and so that was like the first thing I did before I did Remind. I was like, I gotta go unlock Oblivion. I need
Oblivion, Oathkeeper, you know, just destroy things. But yeah, no, I really did question Riku's car key at first, but then I'm like, you know what, whatever, that's fine. It would be more relevant if Riku had like a drive form, then he could really put it to use. I was like, you know, because I legit had used to drive a Honda Pilot, and it looked exactly like that key. And I'm like, Keyblade. So moving away from and the only other shame about that is I wish I could have played as Riku more because I enjoyed switching off between them in Dream Drop Distance. So that was super cool.
I was wishing there was more like ability to play as multiple characters in the game.
Yeah.
Thankfully, Remind almost gives you too much of that option because like the way it works in Remind is, you know, Sora goes back through to all the places. You can play as all the you can play as Roxas, you can play as Kairi, you can play as Aqua, and you can play as Riku in those fights,
but only for like a little bit. Only for like
it's only in those fights. Well, then there's.
Because from what I saw, like mid-fight in the gameplay, like you'd play for a little bit and then you'd switch off to another character. So it's not like you could stay as the one character, I think.
No, well, you don't do them the whole DLC. You do them for their like their fight, right? Because everyone has like their version of the fight, like their fight that they have.
No, I know. I meant in that fight, like from what I saw, like you, like for example, you're dual wielding as Roxas and you're fighting for a bit, and then at some point you switch to Lee, and then you're using Lee. and then I think you switch back to Roxas, not as a choice. I think it just switches you off.
Maybe I remember playing as Rock, but I it's been a while since I played the DLC, so I could be misremembering. I remember
I
mainly
didn't
playing
play
as
it. I just watched
Roxas.
cutscenes. So
Um, and then it does some really cool stuff. There's one scene where you're playing as all of the wielders of light at the same time.
yeah,
And they're like in a circle, and so you're doing moves as all of them.
yeah.
And there's like some really cool combinations in there that like make a lot of sense because like all the three have kind of like parallels between them, right? Like they all have their Riku, they all have their Sora, and they all have their female. I'm not gonna call them all their Kyrie because they're not all the same. They don't, but they're all the girl.
All right, wait, I have to ask this. Now that you brought it up, like, what do you feel about Kyrie? Like, I feel like she did not do much in 3, and they made her seem like she was gonna do more, and because honestly, I felt like even Shion did more than her. Yeah. Namine did more. Than
I
her.
would agree with you if it wasn't for Remind.
I mean, Remind, the fact that I think you got to play her towards the end, or are you also talking about some other scenes?
She is the final boss. Like you fight Xehanort as Kyrie.
Oh yeah, that
so
part.
She's, I mean, yeah, like I think that like there's kind of this interesting thing where because of the two most recent games, Kyrie's been getting a lot more focus in terms of what she does.
Yeah.
And I think that the idea that she's not, up to snuff with, Riku and Sora and Aqua and everyone else is kind of coming into her character because the end of Melody of Memory, she goes to train with Aqua.
Okay, so I'm going to hold off on my question.
Okay.
I was going to ask, because I have not played Melody of Memory, so I don't know everything that happened, and I don't mind hearing about it. So for anyone in the chat that hasn't played it,
My bad.
No, just sort of, yeah. No. I'm saying spoilers, so we can continue talking about it. So if you haven't played it, we're just gonna, I guess, spoil it now.
Yeah. So I think because a lot of like her thing in 3 is the way that her heart is connected to Sora's, right? Like she's the reason he didn't. Yeah, as Blue Knight said, she's the reason he didn't die.
I like Blue Knight's comment here. They're all Kyries. That's pretty much true. They're all Kyries. So it counts. They're all Soras. They're all Kyries. But yeah, you were saying.
So her heart's connected to Sora. She's the reason Sora didn't die, and then Sora goes back in time and fixes everything to try to save her through the connection in their heart. And then now that Sora's missing, Kyrie's using. She's basically doing what Sora did in Remind, where her heart's connected to Sora's. So now they're using her heart to find where Sora is. And she even beat Xehanort again in Melody of Memory because there's like because she's going through her memories and they're kind of like pulling out her memories. And so then her memory of Xehanort kind of like gains sentience and like starts fight. And so then Kyrie's memory of Sora fights Kyrie's memory of Xehanort, and it's like basically implied that it's like Kyrie's memory of Sora only beat Xehanort because of Kyrie's strength. Because like if Kyrie wasn't strong enough to beat Xehanort, then her memory of Sora wouldn't have done it. And so then she ends to go train with Aqua while Riku is trying to like basically either go alone or put together like a group to go find Sora.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think I got the at the end of Remind, the scene was that, Riku was trying to put together the group. You just didn't get Kyrie's perspective of what was going on with her. So I guess she goes to train with Aqua at the end, like you said.
Yeah, and I mean, I definitely agree in the base game. She kind of doesn't, right? Like her first fight, she gets kidnapped, and then she's gone. But Remind goes a lot more into what she does, like after getting kidnapped and stuff. And was it the real Sora? I thought it was Kyrie's memory because the real. Well, okay, I'll get to that in a second.
Yeah, Blue Knight commented that it's not Kyrie's memory of Sora, but rather the real Sora. See, there's a lot going on here.
Well, okay.
I mean, I mean, like, you know, if anyone heard us, well, people are hearing us talk about this. There's just a lot of components. Like, you can keep track of it, but you have to put some effort to keep track of whose memory and what memory and what's going on.
Yeah. So major spoilers for like the entire mystery of melody and memory incoming. Sora's in a fictional world. Is like the way, like obviously he's a fictional character, but the way it's described in the game is that Sora is in an in Kingdom Hearts universe fictional world.
Yeah.
So like to them, you know, the Disney worlds, the Final Fantasy worlds, all that's like the real world. He's in like a video game.
He's in a book, essentially. Like, well, would he be like, is that the equivalent of the Winnie the Pooh like world? Because that's a book, or is that still different?
God, you're right. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, or does 100 Acre Wood count as a world? No, right? It's a book.
You know what? You might be right. It might be a fictional world as well.
Because they can still reach Sora in 100 Acre Wood, right?
Right.
Here they can't. Period. Blue Knight, chime in the chat if you have any you know.
If you know, he's my guy. Like I'll be talking about Kingdom Hearts. I'm like, I have a question. Shit, where's Blue Knight? And I ask him because he's on top of it. I love it.
Yeah, we're not the Kingdom Hearts experts here. We're just the guys talking about what we enjoyed and didn't enjoy. So I'm gonna move on to my. I don't know if you have anything else on Memory of Melody. If you do, just bring it up.
The game, I will say really quickly, just to get my thoughts on the game out, it does this really cool thing where it kind of takes the mechanics of Kingdom Hearts and turns that into the rhythm game. So it's not just like I'm playing Guitar Hero, right? It's the closest you can get to playing Kingdom Hearts while still being a rhythm game in a way that's like really cool. And I was really surprised by. So it feels more like Kingdom Hearts than I was expecting.
So it's definitely better than the card game system.
Oh yeah. In terms of like non-command deck, non-numbered titles. So, you know, if we're not counting, you know, Dream Drop and so, I mean, I guess it's really that in Recom. I like it infinitely more than Recom.
Okay.
It's a little different, but I mean, Kingdom Hearts has so much good music throughout it that getting to listen to it's great. It has some Disney songs. It has these maps. They're called memory dives, where it's like, it's essentially like kind of an easier map. And what's going on is like a movie in the background. And they have one for every character. And like, so it's the character's theme. And then there's like a movie of like their journey throughout the series. And some of them are like really fucking well edited, basically AMVs of the character and like everything they've done. And they're really, really good. Is
there, now that you're talking about it, well, this thought came into my head. Is there any Kingdom Hearts game that you have not played?
I haven't played the ones that are not in the PS4 collection. So I haven't played the original Chain of Memories on the Game Boy Advance. I've only played Recom, which is the Rechain. Yeah, I think it's a PS3 game, but
PS2.
PS2. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I haven't played Days. I've only watched the video because I don't have a working DS at the time.
Okay.
Or I still don't have one. And then I haven't played Recoded because I don't have a DS.
Yeah, I think I just saw the cutscene for that, and then that was kind of it. And I've heard that it's like if there's any one that you can skip or don't have to play at all, it's kind of Recoded. That's what.
Yeah, because all that matters in Recoded is the data characters, and I'm pretty sure the only two times it matters is in 3 is there's the Data Twilight Town and then Data Riku.
Yeah, and I think it's the shortest game too. Just to answer Angel Ranger's question here in the chat, she asked, is it because they have the physical book of 100 Acre Woods? I think that's it, maybe. Like why they can access it as opposed to the fictional video game world of
And maybe because it's like there's 100 Acre Worlds book, but it's implied that like Sora's in Verum Rex, right? Which is the game that you see in the Toy Story world.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think the idea is like the game that's on the shelves in Toy Box isn't maybe like the source of the world, so they can't enter it through there. I don't know.
Or and I don't know. This could be pretty meta, or the fact that they can't enter that world is because 100 Acre Wood is a book. The other Disney world are worlds within that world, but Yozora, whatever, his world, that's another video game. So this is a video
Yeah.
game, and that's another video game, and it's a different story when you're video game hopping. I don't know.
I definitely think that because now it's getting into fictional worlds, and like that's gonna be I think like a major theme of the next couple games probably is like what either making a fictional world is like, or even being a fictional character, right? If they want to get really meta with it. I definitely think Kingdom Hearts is going to get really fucking meta with its next couple games.
Wait, do you think there's more than one? There's not just 4 after this. You think there's going to be one in between, and maybe a few in between?
I don't think 4 will be the next game. I don't think it'll be as many as before 3, but I think it's confirmed almost we have 1 or 2 more non-numbered titles. I mean, there's the Xehanort phone game that's a part of Union Cross that's going into Xehanort's backstory. And I think there's something else.
Okay. I think we got an answer from Blue Knight here. He says, the 100 Acre Woods ties into the themes of every numbered KH game in 3. It even foreshadows the games. So it would make sense for the 100 Acre Woods to count as a fictional world.
Okay, that makes sense, yeah.
So it's a fictional world that they can access, and this is just one that they cannot.
Yeah. I'm sure they'll explain that more in future games, right? Because I don't think it's explained with 100 Acre Woods, so I'm sure we'll get it.
Dolph here in the chat says, what weird fractions are they going to use for the next side game?
I think they should do a Kingdom Hearts game that's a play on pi. I think the next one we get should be like 3.1415. Like, we need pi, because now we're past 3. Give me pi.
Extending pi for each one. Oh God! And then the ports of them, HD Remix 5.6. My other question, in regards to the story itself of Kingdom Hearts, and this is spanning its whole story. A lot of people consider Kingdom Hearts, not a lot of people, but I normally see that they kind of see Kingdom Hearts story as kind of corny, sort of cheesy, like, with the whole heart, light and darkness. And what are your thoughts on that? Do you think Kingdom Hearts, the story is a little bit,
Kingdom Hearts is a shonen manga. Like, I there's nothing I can feel when I play that isn't just, this is a shonen manga given video game form, right? Like, Sora acts the same way that, like Naruto and Deku and other shonen protagonists do. The characters around him, like, it's a shonen series. I think people just expect something different from it, but it just, every time I play those games, I'm like, this is, because I love shonen, and what I love about shonen is the same shit I love about Kingdom Hearts story. And so it's just, like, to me, it's one of those things where if you like shonen series, Kingdom Hearts has the exact same appeal to it. So yeah, it's a little corny, it's a little cheesy, but so's Naruto, so's My Hero Academia. People love those.
Yeah, and if anyone in the chat disagrees with Vindy's next video essay, Kingdom Hearts is a shonen manga, let us know in the chat. If you would like to see this video, let us know. We can make it happen. Dolph says KH is JRPG as hell. So I don't know, but it's not like a battle shonen. It's just kind of but it does have shonen like themes, because there's no tournament arc yet.
Well, there's the Colosseums.
Oh, that's true. But it wasn't like a story.
And I think part of it is there's just tropes in Japanese media, right? In JRPGs and in anime and manga, there's a lot of the same tropes and a lot of the same storytelling devices. But also, I think I'd be willing to bet when they have their closed room meetings about Kingdom Hearts, they probably are marketing Kingdom Hearts and making it for the same demographic that the people making shonen manga are making their demographic for, right?
Yeah.
So it's not a surprise that there's a lot of carryover in how their stories are told and what's going on in them. So
I do feel, though, that Kingdom Hearts has gotten to the point, though, with everything that's happened in 3 and 2 and like with its themes and everything, that it's become anything can kind of happen.
Yeah.
As long as you believe hard enough, or you believe in the light, or whatever. And it's become, especially in 3, like, you can travel through time, the lights from the past can come to save us, the Keyblade warriors, of the past can, come out and give you a hand. Sora can die and although, correct me if I'm wrong if he didn't die, but from my understanding, he technically like vanished, died or whatever, and they can come back.
Yeah, I think, well, because I think the way it happened was, so it's kind of like this weird, where like Sora dies and he comes back through his connection to Kairi, but then Kairi disappears for it, or no, Kairi dies, and Sora tries to save Kairi, but to save Kairi from dying, Sora has to essentially give up himself, and that's why he's where he is now.
Yeah.
So, like anything can happen. I don't think it's not like, there aren't consequences for actions, right? Like Sora's now gone from everyone, which is like the whole like bittersweet thing of that last cutscene of 3, right? Is you finally get all these characters together, everyone that you've wanted to see be together, but you're not there, right? Because, you've played Sora, so you would connect to Sora. Sora's not there. He's gone. He's missing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I mean, like, I feel like, it definitely lowers. I don't know. Like, it just does feel like, I don't know if it lowers the stakes, but it just does feel like at some point, like, oh, anything can happen. But maybe that was an exception for 3 because, you did want to just see everyone together at whatever the cost. But like, I was gonna say something about this. I'm trying to remember. Because I feel like definitely, okay, I totally lost my train of thought. I'm gonna go to the chat.
Okay, my bad. I didn't mean to cut you off and make you lose your train of thought.
No, it's okay. I was gonna say something that, like, I feel like, it's sort of like makes it feel like, again, anything can kind of happen, and sort of, if you. Okay, I know what I was gonna say, and I don't know if this is gonna veer off into a completely different topic. But have you played Final Fantasy VII Remake?
Yes. I finished that. I played it all on stream earlier this month.
Did it, by the ending, and I don't want to spoil that game for people, so
right. So we won't spoil it.
Did it feel very Kingdom Hearts?
Nomura went full Nomura. Definitely, right? He went full Nomura.
Exactly. No, my thoughts at the end. I was like, okay, Nomura went full Nomura.
Like that was. Yeah, I mean, he has like things that he does, and he has a style to the way he tells the stories. And that style's a little wild, and he did it.
Let me go back a bit. I don't want to cut you off. I do want to talk about that specifically, but I have a friend who big Final Fantasy VII fan, played the original tons of times, like growing up. I didn't play the original. I just played Remake. So I found out like some of the differences and whatever afterward, but they weren't pleased with the direction it took.
Yeah.
And I had to think about it, and I'm like, oh, because Final Fantasy VII was before Kingdom Hearts. That's before Nomura became, like he doubled down on, the stuff he brought, the concepts he started playing with in Kingdom Hearts.
So yeah, so I played Final Fantasy. Funny enough, I played Final Fantasy VII last year for the first time. Loved it. It's one of my favorite games. Not as much as Kingdom Hearts, but loved it. Then played Remake. And at first, I was not a fan of Remake. When I first finished it, there were a lot of things I didn't like. There's a lot of really good. The ending, I had a lot of questions about, and there's a lot of questions, like which Sephiroth is which, who is this Sephiroth? And a lot of the questions are baked in like deep spoilers for Final Fantasy VII that I'm not going to get into. But Nomura didn't direct the original one. He did the character designs, and he was like a code writer.
Oh, okay.
But the director was a guy who's no longer with Square.
Gotcha. So, okay, I got that wrong.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still like he had a say in the story, right? Like, I mean, I assume everyone knows the character that dies in Final Fantasy VII. Like, that's like just a known thing.
And if you don't know, just shout for us not to say it. I mean, like, we're not going to name drop.
It was his idea to kill her.
Gotcha.
So Nomura was the one who
confirmed it's a female character. So
yeah. So Nomura had the idea to kill her. So he had a hand in the original story of Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, that's a big kind of thing, that he had control over. So
and but he wasn't the final say. There was another guy who had the final. Gotcha. And they actually apparently had to talk him off a bunch of ledges of things to do in the game. Like, he wanted to go really dark with it. Yeah. And I guess Nomura and the other guy that we're working on, I can't remember the other guy's name, were like, don't do that. That's
So
a little far.
I think with Nomura being on it then, and now it makes sense, it had like it was able to reach a happy medium where
Yeah.
it's not too Nomura, like
Right.
it's a more of the positive kind of anything can kind of happen if you believe, and not too dark where this guy wanted to go. So it ended up being like a balance in between. But now we are clearly seeing, all of Nomura's influence in the remake.
It definitely, I mean, I think that the game does a really good job. It does a really good job throughout it of like being the characters. Like that was the biggest thing I was worried about, because I do think that Square for Cloud, and I'm gonna put Kingdom Hearts on blast for a second. The Cloud's character in everything Final Fantasy VII after remake isn't the same as Cloud in the original game, right? He's really edgy, he's brooding all the time, and that's not who Cloud actually is in like the original game. And I was worried about that going into remake. Like, are they gonna do the same thing to Cloud that they've done for 20 years? But they got him perfect. Like, so the character and the party interactions are great. I think the gameplay's fun, but not like amazing. And then the story just goes full fucking Nomura at the end, and it in like the best and worst ways, I think.
Yeah. So, I really enjoyed remake for someone that didn't play the original, but kind of I enjoyed it, but I did have that kind of concern in the back of my mind in the back of my head, like if it's gonna go this full route, it's gonna get really complicated.
I just can't wait to see, and this is out there.
Like, it doesn't work for every story, so
no, but I can't wait to see, and this is really out there. But if Kingdom Hearts and the remake intertwine at all,
oh god,
I don't think they will, but I could definitely
would be angry.
People would be really mad.
There would be mobs. God, I don't know. That's a little much.
I think there's no way we don't see Final Fantasy VII stuff in the next Kingdom Hearts game, but I don't know if we'll or the next numbered Kingdom Hearts game. I don't know though if it'll be like a crossover that affects remake.
I don't think that the worlds should intermingle, because then at that point it's you can't even call it a remake anymore. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. Like, it's changing some stuff as a remake in the original story, okay, but then crossing it over with another game, I don't know. But let me just go back up to like a few, and we'll continue on our what I was talking about before about the story and kind of like that. But I want to go back and answer some questions I saw if they're still in the chat. Comly XL asked, "What do you guys think of Sora as a protagonist?"
I love him. I think he's great. Sora used to be like my third or fourth favorite character in the series, and now he's like pretty handily my second. I think he's really good. I think he's exactly what I would want out of the main character. And I think he does a really good job at allowing all the side characters to shine. And the reason that people like, Axel and Roxas and Aqua to an extent, as much as they do, I think a lot of that comes down to how good Sora is at doing his job in the narrative.
I personally, I think I had the opposite direction. Like, I feel like I liked Sora. I was cool with Sora. Like, the first game, I liked Sora, and he was cool. And but then as the games went on, I've become more of a Riku fan. So and I think I have to blame Dream Drop Distance. Like, I really enjoyed Riku's redemption arc, period. So I'm like, that's it's so cool. He's getting a chance to kind of actually own that like darkness and kind of do good or not let.
Yeah, Riku's story is great. I love it.
But I think what really did that was Dream Drop Distance, because and my friend felt strongly about this because he really liked Sora, and it just felt like they were making Sora dumb. And I don't know if he became more dumb, or it's just that he's kind of aged and he still kind of has that innocence to him, but like he did some kind of, he acted a little stupid in Dream Drop Distance. And I feel like that also carried a bit over to 3 as well. And then all you really see in Dream Drop Distance, which my friend was mad about, that, Riku gets the Mark of Mastery and actually succeeds, and Sora kind of just,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what I like about the way that I think Sora's arc is kind of handled is like he learns in the first game, right, that his, in like the line he says, like his friends are his power, right? Like because he connects his heart to others, those hearts make his heart stronger, right? And he's stronger for the connections he makes to other people. And I think part of like what he goes through in 3, and it's, I think that Dream Drop is the game is the series really trying to show it is that like Sora's alone in that game, right? I mean, he has, like the Dream Eaters, but those aren't really, like friends, right? Like he doesn't make a connection with Meow Wow.
Yeah.
And so, he goes through and he's alone, and Sora doesn't believe in his own strength, right? He thinks that he's only strong with other people.
Yeah, which is a very shonen theme.
Right, yeah.
Friends are my power.
And so because of that, Sora he's weak, and there's like the entire moment where he gives up when all of his friends die, right, in the Keyblade graveyard, because his entire thing is that he thinks that he needs his friends to be something, and he kind of has to learn in 3 that not only do his friends make his heart stronger, he makes their heart stronger, and he has his own strength that he can fight with. And so then by the end, he's kind of learned that. So I end up really liking Sora's arc throughout all 3 games, where it's like, or all the games, I guess, where it starts, and he doesn't believe in anything. And then he believes that his friends give him his strength. And then he learns that not only do his friends give him strength, he gives them strength, and he has his own strength.
Yeah.
So
and I think that's also what helps having the games fresh in your head, because like if you didn't play the spin-offs, if you didn't like play the side games, which are actually main canon games, and sort of have and it happens to me with anime all the time, like keeping track of kind of the character's arc with 1 and 2 and 3, like you can kind of forget like, what that character's kind of gone through and sort of how it works thematically. Like, so, while Sora might not be my favorite, I think he works as a protagonist, and he's kind of, doing what he's supposed to. He brings everyone together, and he sort of has, again, like you were saying, he fits into the whole overall theme, which again is easy to forget if you're not fresh on it.
Yeah, I mean, to tie it back to it's what I always say about shonen, that like a shonen is carried by its protagonist, and I think it's almost like how much someone likes the protagonist is going to relate to how much, because like especially like, I mean, in most series, but I think especially in a shonen, the protagonist, because generally the protagonists are super idealistic and stuff, they stand for what the series stands for, right? Yeah. Like Deku stands for what My Hero Academia stands for. Naruto stands for, what Naruto stands for. Luffy stands for what One Piece stands for. And I think that like the reason that people who love those series love the main characters is a lot of times because those main characters, are the embodiment of the series. And I think it's pretty much the same with Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, Sora stands for, what the whole Kingdom Hearts series stands for. And if he wasn't there, like he's the only one that kind of charges forward and disappears or does whatever he needs to do to kind of save people or kind of keep everything going. So that's Sora's value, why he's there. If he wasn't there, then there would be no Kingdom Hearts.
Right.
And then this one wasn't really a question. It was just so much more like a comment. If the discourse is anything to go by, KH could stand to be more blatant than shonen, so people don't miss the point.
Yeah, it definitely isn't, as I think, especially with like sometimes, it's really blatant with what like the series is about, right? Like, what is it? The scenes where, he says, my friends are my power, is like, yeah, you couldn't be any more blatant with what it's going for. And then I think there are some times where, you do have to do a little bit of digging, and you do have to read the reports and play other games to really get the full picture sometimes.
Yeah. And I feel like, again, with people who kind of, might find the story corny or kind of it's spelling everything out or whatever, it also has to do with expectations. Because again, if you, let's say, came in with 1 and played 2, and maybe you didn't play the side games, and you're coming in 3, and these are games you played like as a kid, and now you're playing it now that you're older, different mindset, maybe you want it, you kind of forget like the story, it hits in a different way, because then you're just like, oh, that's right, this is like, I don't know, it probably doesn't jive with you because you're just in a different mindset but the game has always been that. So,
and especially, and this is something I see a lot is people who played it when they were younger, because it has Disney characters, right? And these are people that aren't into anime, aren't into manga, any of that kind of stuff, right? But they liked Kingdom Hearts when they were younger because it has, it had Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah.
So they play it when they're younger, don't play the other games, and then they play 3, and because they have only played 1 and 2 when they were kids, they didn't really know what anime was, right? They just, maybe they watched Pokemon, but that's, different. And so then now when they play it, all they see is that the anime, like bullshit. And if someone's not into anime, I can see that being like, oh, this is, like they don't like it for that. And I get that, I think that in the same way that I wouldn't recommend, Persona 5 to someone who doesn't like anime, I wouldn't recommend Kingdom Hearts to someone who doesn't.
Yeah.
But I think that among people who do like anime or manga, Kingdom Hearts hits a lot of those same beats and a lot of the same like things that, at least for me, I like about anime and manga. Story-wise, I think Kingdom Hearts hits a lot of those as well.
Like, only in anime can you get away with like 7 versions of Xehanort.
Right.
If you want a TV series for a mainstream audience, they'll be like, what? This is weird. But in anime, it's like the ridiculousness is sort of not as ridiculous. Like, okay, yeah, well, this kind of happens.
Yeah.
And then what do you think about the whole theme of like how Kingdom Hearts really treats the whole theme of light and darkness, and kind of keeps going into that?
I really, really like the way that Riku ties into this, actually, because I think that like it's super cool because you have the beginning and in the first game it's just very much light good, dark bad, right?
Yeah.
Riku's bad because he's using the darkness, and then starting in Recom and kind of going throughout, it kind of turns into this. Riku's like, okay, I have whatever, I have darkness inside of me, but I can use that darkness for good. You know what I mean? Yeah. I can use that darkness to help the light. And so then kind of throughout the series, Riku is teaching other people that, and he's learning that. And then, it all culminates with Sora and Xehanort, where, Sora's, fighting for light and Xehanort's fighting for dark, but they're able to kind of understand each other because, I don't think this is said, but like, you can look at it like, because Riku's using both, Riku's like the embodiment of like, you can use both have their place, both are needed. And, so then it's good, and it fits because, like you have light and then you have the shadow, you have the darkness that's going to be there. And so I really like the way that it's handled. And it's why I like so much what happens with Xehanort at the end of 3.
Yeah, because it sort of is touched on even with Xehanort's relationship with Master Ericus or Ericus, where they were both, it wasn't at the time when they were young, it wasn't like one was evil and one was good. It was just that Ericus kind of wielded a Keyblade of light, and then Xehanort just used a Keyblade of darkness, or he had an affinity to the darkness. But it only became a problem when he started to use it to do bad things,
right?
Or to kind of have nefarious schemes and all that stuff. So that and then in terms of Riku, or actually in terms of both Terra and Riku, which I liked at the end of like towards Remind, where Terra is commending Riku, and it's like these are 2 characters that came back from the darkness, like they both succumbed to it, but then were able to kind of redeem themselves, and now it's made them stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Not the darkness itself, but just overcoming and being able to kind of use their abilities to help their friends.
Yeah, and I think it's really good because it takes something that starts in the first game is just this, no pun intended, black and white issue. And it kind of goes somewhere with it that's more than just, this is what, we are the light and we're always going to fight the dark. It's like, well, we can use the dark, and the dark isn't necessarily bad. It's how you use it and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I feel like Kingdom Hearts itself never really gets like, super deep with it, or like, obviously it just doesn't really get into the nuance of what it all means, but it touches on it, and it doesn't, again, sometimes it still can be a little like simplified, but it's still saying that there's room in between, So, I thought that was interesting. It definitely at times gets a little complicated with all the hearts kind of coming here and bringing someone back and saving them, and then the heart falling into darkness, and then, but that's kind of it.
Yeah, I remember hearing someone say at some point that like one of the first basis to appreciate and understand Kingdom Hearts is you have to understand that the heart and the body are separate things. Like that's like step one, is that like
Yeah.
characters' hearts are just as much a part of them as who they are. And it's true. It's because the heart is like, I mean, obviously Kingdom Hearts is in the title, but like the idea of the heart is so massively important to what Kingdom Hearts is about as a series.
Yeah, and if you think about it from a in real life, like your body has its own needs, and your heart has its own feelings and own needs, and you can kind of treat them separately, sort of. Yeah, and then in terms of so do you think so? I think it's pretty fair to say that Kingdom Hearts isn't really newcomer friendly.
No, it's very cheap for newcomers. It's very cheap. The full thing goes on sale on PSN, like the all-in-one collection, right? That has 1 + 5 and 2 + 5, which is 1, 2, Recom and Birth by Sleep, and then 2.8, which is Dream Drop, and then like the 0.2, like the prologue to 3, and 3 for like $20. I'll see it like every couple months.
Damn.
So you can get like the full series for cheap, but it's like 200 hours of game you have to do to catch up at this point, because every game's like 30 hours long. So it's not newcomer friendly just because it's such a time investment, right?
Yeah,
it's the same way that like
you have to play. You should play all the games if you even want to get it.
It's the same with like One Piece isn't very newcomer friendly because you have to read the whole damn thing. You can't jump in. I can see people getting confused, and I think the collection does a really bad job with some things, but I can see people getting a little confused about which game to play and which order, and I mean, you can look it up, right? There are ways to find it, but I do understand it being a little bit more confusing if you don't have someone that can kind of tell you what to do.
Yeah, and actually there's the other thing you wanted to touch on, and I don't want to forget, is that now is recently announced all of it for PC.
Yeah, well, I can. So how I just mentioned that you can get the entire thing for like $20 a lot on PS4. Every individual game there, so all 4 of them, right? So 1.5 and 2.5, 2.8, 3, and Melody and Memory are coming out. They're all $60.
Okay.
On Epic Games Store. And even when they came out on Xbox, they came out at like the same price on PS4. So like, it's really cool, Square, that you're bringing Kingdom Hearts to PC, and it's going to have mods, and like people are going to get crazy with it. But also, why is it $60 for a collection of games that came out in the early 2000s? And the collection came out, technically it's a PS3 it's 2 PS3 collections combined, and is like $30, $20 now by your standards on the PlayStation Store.
That's insane. So you can get it all for $20 or get it on PC for $60.
60 each.
60 each.
Yeah. Sorry, I should have said. So it's like all $20 on PS4. Each game is individually $60.
But each, like, are they paired into collections?
Yeah, each collection is $60.
Okay. That's a lot of games.
So it's if you wait for a sale on PS4, you get the whole thing for $20, or you pay like $180 for everything that's not Melody and Memory, which isn't in those sales. So
and I am tempted to get the collection because I did want to rethinking about Birth by Sleep earlier. I wanted to replay it, but my PSP broke. I'm like, oh damn, I can't play it. But like, oh, I might as well get the collection and revisit some of that stuff. I definitely miss shot locks were in Kingdom Hearts 3, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, but I barely use them. You could do so many things in Kingdom Hearts 3 that it was just
that's the one thing I did like about 3's gameplay is it took all the little things that were like, it took shot locks, which were added in Birth by Sleep, and it took flow motion, which was added in Dream Drop.
Dream Drop.
And it's funny because shot locks are busted in Birth by Sleep, right? It's a get out of jail free card.
Yeah.
And flow motion is busted in Dream Drop. It just is ridiculous. And it toned both of them down, so they're a little bit worse, but it's cool to finally get to play, because neither of those games are command deck games, right? They didn't play like a traditional Kingdom Hearts game. Yeah. So I found it really fun to play a traditional Kingdom Hearts with these little things that were kind of added in from the other games.
I don't know. I thought it was like too much. I was like, all right, I have too many options between this amusement park rides and like I feel like
Summons,
the
Keyblade
limitations,
transformations, grand
make you
magic.
kind of work around it and kind of figure out like the system. But it was validating. It was nice to be like, okay, these side games, canon, or like it's finally in a main game. I can use these things. And, it did feel like, at least for in Birth by Sleep and Dream Drop, like these are things that only Keyblade masters or people that, can use. So it's like, it's a different system. So, and now that these characters are Keyblade masters, they have access to these. And also in Birth by Sleep, their armor was really cool too.
I love their Birth by Sleep armor.
Yeah.
I hope we get to see it. I want a game that's kind of like, because like Days, and granted I haven't played Days, but I know a lot about the game. It has like the mission structure.
Yeah.
Where you can play as the different like organization members and other characters and stuff.
Yeah.
I want a version of that on like a modern console, but with the wielders of light. So give me a game that has like a mission structure that's maybe even like a little bit more slice life, where I go on missions and I get to play as, Ventus and Terra and Aqua and Roxas and Axel and all these characters doing stuff. Like, I want that. I would love that game. Right. Just to see all of them interact more.
Yeah, no, I feel like that would be cool. Like a game where you can actually, again, there's some story, but where you can focus on going on the missions and I don't know, just getting some more idle time. I get like leisure time to play with the characters, test their abilities out, switch around, and kind of do that.
Well, there's so many, and Remind and 3 touch on all these different little character interactions that you can get, right? Like there's Roxas and Ventus and how they look alike, or how Terra and Riku are very similar but took different paths, kind of, where Riku came back from the darkness much quicker and it took Terra a little bit longer. And you have all these different like individual, I think, like character interactions, which there's characters you could have that would be really interesting to see. And so I kind of want to see a game flesh those out, because again, there's so many characters throughout the course of the series that I think, everyone has a character that like is their favorite. Right. And a lot of people have different favorites, right? I know a lot of people who have Axel as their favorite. I know some people like, you really like Aqua. I love Roxas. And like, I want to see more of all these characters do their thing, because I mean, they're all so different. And I think there's so much that people like.
Yeah, I mean, like for the Roxas fans, like they literally only got that little bit in the beginning of Kingdom Hearts 2, and then if you did play 358.5, you got the Roxas game. But then after that, it was kind of like, can't use them anymore. So it's like they finally got redeemed a little bit again in the Remind DLC, and being able to see him again. So because he was kind of just AWOL. Well, inside Sora. And then Nunmanji in the chat said, I would say some people dunk on light and dark as how Kingdom Hearts tells its story are missing the idea that they aren't really vague concepts, when Riku's darkness can be attributed to wanting to be free and escape the island. So basically, desires result in his darkness. So desires can be channeled positively or negatively.
Yeah.
There you go. That's a good video topic. So, and then I guess I don't really have anything else. I think in terms of, the criticism that Kingdom Hearts has been, I think has it always received this criticism, or do you think this has been more recent, like kind of people dunking on Kingdom Hearts?
I feel like since before I got into the games, and so I'm coming, I'm even somewhat, I guess at this point it's not recent, but
yeah, that's right.
I got into anime like 5 years ago as a whole.
Yeah.
So the discussion I'd always heard around it, coming from mainly someone who only pays attention to people who only talk about video games, and in kind of like the more mainstream outside of like the anime sphere, has always been, Kingdom Hearts is like this edgy 2005 hot topic game, weird anime bullshit, too confusing, too convoluted. So I think that's always existed, but I think among people who are more anime fans or Kingdom Hearts fans or whatever, I definitely feel like it's a more like I feel like people were for some reason disappointed by 3, and they've kind of let that kind of taint everything about this. Like there are two major reactions, I think, within like among major Kingdom Hearts fans, right? Within like the fandom, if you want to use that term, that like there are the people who loved the game and it like, reignited their love for the series. And so now they were really excited for Melody of Memory and the other things. And I think there were a lot of people who were really disappointed by the game, and it kind of like soured the entire series for them.
Yeah, because I feel like people were expecting sort of like 2, where it's the perfect, and again, for people, and I feel like we're repeating ourselves, but that didn't play the spin-offs, it just went from 2 to 3. So they were expecting that perfect blend of fun, addicting gameplay, and plus 2 is where Kingdom Hearts was at the height of its popularity. So they were expecting that that fun, addictive gameplay with the story, with a story that they could understand.
Yeah, and because that is like, you should play Chain of Memories to play 2. And a lot of 2 is based on ideas that are in Chain of Memories.
But I think you could get away with.
You can definitely get away with it and understand the bulk of the story.
You might be a little confused at the beginning with the whole Roxas bit and like who the organization members are and a few references, but then you're kind of like, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and then there's like the scene at the end that has Roxas and Naminé, and that would be like mainly it in terms of like real confusion. But for 3, I mean, if you went 2 to 3, the most you would know is like, oh, Hercules, they're his friend, and that would be it.
Yeah. I mean, like, I have to speak honestly, like, after Kingdom Hearts 3, my excitement for it did fizzle out a little bit, because I was mixed on the gameplay. I was satisfied with the story, but then, I got what I wanted, and then that was kind of it.
Right.
And then, like, it just felt like by the ending, it was sort of an excuse to just kind of keep it going. Like, I felt like all of, everything I wanted was kind of all wrapped up. So I'm like, all right, I'm satisfied. But now it's like, there's just, now Sora's in another world, let's just kind of keep the game going.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. But then with the whole after credit scene with Zigbar and that reveal, spoilers, with the original, I guess, Keyblade like wielders. I don't know what do you call them again? Like, what are they?
Fuck, I don't remember.
They're those guys with the animal masks. Like,
yeah. They're in key. There's a movie, right? Keyback Cover, which is in the 2.8.
Yeah.
Is mainly set up for the game after 3. Like, it has more to do with the secret ending and shit that's coming later.
The more I was planning it all out.
3. It's like, what the fuck?
And I, like, I did not know what that meant at the time because I watched that and played a little bit of Fragmentary Passage before even 3 came out. And then 3 happens. That's not addressed at all. And then at the end, it's like, oh, shit, okay. And once it connected it all back, it's like, I hate myself. I'm like, man, I'm interested. Like, I want to play 4. I want to see what happens. So, it faded out a little bit, but I know, like, I'm going to end up playing 4 and whatever the next game is. I probably won't play, like, too many of the spinoffs unless they're, like, really, like, actual gameplay, like, main entry games. Like Dream Drop Distance, Birth by Sleep, or similar games to that.
Yeah. Because, the thing with Melody is, like, rhythm games are one of my favorite game genres, so I was already going to pick up Melody. Yeah, so I was already going to pick up Melody because I love rhythm games.
What rhythm games are you... What are some of your favorites, as an example?
I have a Rock Band guitar right here, because I play it so much, I just keep one at my desk.
I haven't heard people play Rock Band. I haven't heard, like, I remember when Rock Band and Guitar Hero really in, and now, like, no one, like, talks about it.
I mean, I remember playing them all the time, a long time ago. I just like the guitar controller and doing that. So I love playing that. I've played a lot of Osu. I have a couple of the Hatsune Miku games. I'm not even the biggest, like, Vocaloid fan. I just like the rhythm gameplay. So
did you ever play the Taiko, like, drum game?
I want to so bad.
That always looks super fun.
I want to buy a drum controller for it, though. Like, my thing with, like, the Taiko games is, like, I want to play them. I don't want to play them without the drum, because, like, I feel like half the fun is going to be beating on the drum like an 8.
The only rhythm game I ever got into or I played when I was a lot younger was just DDR, and then the keyboard version one, Stepmania. And then that's the only time I was into rhythm games.
So, and I mean, the thing with Melody Hammer is, like, doing, like, the adventure mode or the world map, which is the story mode, is like 4 or 5 hours to do if you just blaze through it.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I did every challenge in every map in it, so it took me closer to like 9 or 10 to do.
And this is on PS4?
Yeah, and Switch. and coming to PC.
And does it have actual like cutscenes, like
so as you're going through, it does cutscenes that are a recap of Kingdom Hearts of the entire series from Kyrie's perspective. So it's kind of Kyrie narrating what she thought and what like her thoughts and feelings over everything that happened. From one, and that actually kind of helped reignite me and wanting to play all the games because I'm seeing all these scenes that I remember that I hadn't seen in years from the previous. I was like, oh my god, I loved that moment because you get to see them all throughout.
Yeah.
And then there's like you get to the ending, and the ending is like a 40-minute long section that has it has like one song you do, and then the rest is like cutscenes and new stuff. So it's like a mix.
Okay, so definitely you'd also if you're into that type of gameplay, you'd enjoy it more.
So. If you like, if not, so if you're someone like you or someone in the chat, like if you're not a big rhythm game fan, so you're probably not going to get a lot out of the gameplay. And you're like a Kingdom Hearts fan, but you don't want to spend 60 on it.
Yeah,
I spent 60. I probably wouldn't now. I would say wait and pick it up for like.
I literally bought a PSP just to play Birth by Sleep, so I'm pretty bad too. I was waiting for the special limited edition PS4 of Kingdom Hearts to come out in the US before I justified getting a PS4. But then it never came out, and I was like, okay, then. Well, I gotta borrow someone's PS4. So
I bought. I mean, that's better than me buying a Vita for Persona 4 Golden a year before it comes out on Steam. So
that must have stung.
I have my Vita somewhere. I bought a Vita because I wanted to play Persona 4. Played Persona 4. Haven't really played any other game on my Vita. So I was joking there was a Persona 4 machine, but I was like, at least I can play P4. Then it came out on Steam, and I'm like, well.
Yeah, that's really got a sting. In terms of so I think we covered everything in terms of like the kind of the criticism, why people fall out of it. If you're gonna play the games all over again and stream it, if you're feeling adventurous and slightly masochistic. My friend once, we don't know why we had this crazy idea. We were once bored at a convention. And I told him play Kingdom Hearts 1 with a fight stick. And so
I have one.
He was, cause he brought it so we could play Street Fighter at the time. Like we were into it, and he had like his fight stick. I think I was just gonna play on a controller, and then he had Kingdom Hearts 1 with him. And I'm like, oh, what if you play Kingdom Hearts 1 with your fight stick? And he had the most miserable time because certain inputs didn't work. So I think he could jump, but he couldn't do certain things, or maybe he couldn't. I think he could jump. There were certain things he couldn't do, and it was
that would maybe be like a really fun like just random stream. Yeah, like just like playing random games with a fight stick, right? I do like Kingdom Hearts,
Yeah.
But
it was a challenge. He got pretty far. It was hard though. He was hating himself. I think he definitely got past Aladdin's world.
Okay.
But he had a tough time with the lion statue thing, the sand thing outside of Aladdin, the cave.
I don't even know if you'd be able to do like Atlantica because you don't have I don't have a second stick on mine.
Oh God.
So I think there would be like,
what? Don't do
a point it would get stuck. Like I don't think you could do the full game. I think I would get stuck.
Probably not. Feel free to test it out if you're ever curious. As Blue Knight says, that sounds not very fun. He didn't have fun, but it was fun to watch him not have fun. So if that makes any sense, if you want to get mileage out of that. The only other thing Blue Knight had mentioned, like I think Nomura said, that a part of his writing philosophy is that he goes out of his way to build up hype and speculation. I believe that. I have a lot of respect for Nomura. I feel like once I heard him, he once commented saying like, someone once told him like he couldn't draw so many like zippers on a character or something, and like I'm paraphrasing here, but he then was like, he's the type of person. He said he's the type of person whose personality is if someone tells him not to do something, he'll just double down on it. So he was just like, okay, more zippers.
I remember hearing that he used to intentionally make character designs hard to model. Like I'm pretty sure I remember hearing that part of the reason that Squall from Final Fantasy VIII has like all the fluff on his jacket is because that was going to be a pain for the artists at Square to make like models of. And he's just like, I'm just gonna do this because it's gonna
Did he have a reason for it? Like, do you want to just give him a hard time for no reason, or
I heard this years ago. I don't know if that's true. I would have to fact check it.
like it'd have to be like he was pissed at them. Like that's pretty vindictive.
It's funny though.
Maybe one of them complained that his character designs are usually like too intricate or hard to
yeah.
Do.
They're
and
like,
he was like, oh okay, all right. You want to see it difficult? Here we go. I have some respect for that. And Manji says, can't believe Nomura was utilizing his own darkest. That's where he gets it from. That's it. It's Nomura. Like Kingdom Hearts is just Nomura's reflections and trying to reconciliate his own dark impulses and tell himself you can use it for good.
It's his path, right? It went from being he was just a character designer, and then now we're at the stage where he's a game director because now we're talking about fictional worlds. So he moved the one step farther in his career.
His character designs though are so good. Every time I see them, especially in Remind where they added all the scenes of I don't know, the what do you call those? The stained glass like circles where you see the artwork of the character
I think
designs.
it's the something of the heart, I think.
Yeah. Those always look so good. Always like a treat to see those. So I was like, oh, we're getting a lot of these in Remind. Like a lot.
Yeah, he's like my favorite character designer. I will say though, even though I love Nomura's character designs, I love his art. I'm kind of happy that Final Fantasy 16 is going with the Final Fantasy 14 team for like its art and stuff. Because I think his stuff's really good. And maybe this is just me as a Kingdom Hearts fan talking.
Yeah.
But I just want him to be able to work on Kingdom Hearts. Like I need him to finish up Remake, get that out of the way, and work on Kingdom Hearts. Like you're getting up there in age. I don't know how many years you got left. Give me my fucking game.
This sounds like it's so bad to say this, but this sounds as a fan,
right.
I know as a human, people have the responsibilities they should have. So I don't endorse, some people take it to a different level and are toxic and kind of harass these directors and whatever. So I'm not saying I endorse that, because if they want to, if he feels like, for example, creatively burned out by Kingdom Hearts and want to try other things and whatever, he has every right to do that and he should do that. That's healthy for him. But as a fan, it reminds me of my conversations about Game of Thrones and George R.R. Martin and kind of him getting up there in age and wanting him to finish his books. It's,
and that's like a legitimate. It's a legitimate concern that people have, right? Like that happened to the fantasy author who wrote the Wheel of Time books.
Yeah,
he died, and someone had to step in and finish the books.
Oh,
for him.
He died. Okay.
Yeah,
I heard about those books, but I didn't know he died.
Yeah, my brother's a big fan of him. I guess he died, and they had to get another. Like he had notes for how the rest of the series was going to end, and he had like assistants and stuff that were helping him, but another guy to come in and do the last 3 books because he passed away in the middle of it, And I think that's part of the problem sometimes with these or not the problem, but that's like always a fear with long running stories is, people don't last forever, right? Like we see it with Hunter x Hunter, Togashi, his body can't keep up with him anymore.
Which is sad. Yeah.
And, now it's been out of the magazine for a year. Will that story legitimately ever be finished? Or will Hunter x Hunter just be something that's kind of over,
Yeah, like, at this rate, my legitimate concern is that I'm going to be a middle-aged man playing Kingdom Hearts. Hey, 4 just came out, and then telling my kid, hey, Dad bought this for himself. But if you want to get in on this,
you gotta start at 1.
You gotta play 1. I got the collection for you. Gotta play 1. You gotta go to Chain of Memories. You can't skip Chain of Memories. Dad, I don't like the card system. You have to play Chain of Memories. It's relevant to the story. Then you play 2. You do not skip Birth by Sleep. You do not skip Dream Drop Distance. Play Recoded. Why not? He has to get all the way there.
Just make him play the whole series. They're sitting there. They're like, I just want to see like Anna. And you're like, no, you'll get there eventually.
It's just the concern. Like it reminds me of, and I really don't want to veer off topic, but it's relevant. Like it reminds me of Stephen King. He was working on the Dark Tower series early in the early 2000s, and he hadn't finished them. And this old lady, like really up there in years, I don't know if she was on her deathbed, but he tells a story that she wrote him a letter, like saying, like, "Hey, could you just please tell me the ending of the Dark Tower? Because I don't know how long I'm gonna have left to live, and I just want to know what happens."
Right.
And that's a concern as a fan. You want that closure. Like I remember in anime, like back in 2006, I was into this anime called Trinity Blood, and it was like only 24 episodes, but it was being adapted from like a novel, and there was like 6 novels out, so there was still a lot of story to tell. It was super interesting, But around the time that the anime came out, the
Mm,
author died and the stories weren't finished. So
yeah.
it's been like, well, there's no point to like continue. Like it's just, it's a shame. Like it was super interesting, but you know, you're never going to get that closure. So there's no
Yeah.
point.
It's almost like there's no point even starting it, right? Because
Yeah.
you're never going to get an ending. So you're
Yeah.
just kind of like, yeah, like blue balling yourself.
Yeah, so I never went back to it for that reason, but it's like it's a legitimate concern. It's like Nomura, you know, as much as I want you to be creatively fulfilled, you can be creatively fulfilled. You know, I want you to finish the game first. I mean, it did make me happy because I was actively waiting for Kingdom Hearts 3 since like 2015 or 2014 when there was murmurs that it was going to come out. And he split the team up to focus on Final Fantasy 15, and then he would focus, I think, or was it 7 Remake? I don't know.
He was he was working.
Up,
yeah,
right?
he was the director of Versus 13, which was announced. I mean, that was announced like you know in the before the 2010s, and I think Square took him off of the Versus 13 project and turned it into 15, which is why there's like a lot of people are like kind of upset, I think, partially with 15 because like if you look at old Versus 13 footage, it looked like Kingdom Hearts 2 in terms of like it had the command menu and it was an action game. And Nomura in an interview one time called Sora and Noctis's Children or something like that.
Yeah.
And so then they kind of took him off the project. And so then he made Yozora, who's a character who looks a lot like Noxus and kind of parodied a Versus 13 trailer in Kingdom Hearts. And so I mean I hope he's creatively fulfilled, and I'm not saying that like, oh, just don't make any more remake, because I'm sure, you know, he has things he wants to do with that as a director, and there's things that want to happen, and it's his job, but there's things that I want to see more.
Yeah, no, definitely. I just feel like it's important to make that distinction. You know, like I feel the way I do, honestly. As a fan, I want it to be complete. I'm like, hey, get back to it. Who cares about your creative fulfillment? But, you know, I do want to make a distinction because, again, there's so much, you know, toxicity that goes around towards these guys. And it's like, okay, I understand.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying, obviously we're, you know, I don't think either of us are saying, you know, it's Square's fault. It's Nomura's, like they have things they have to do. They have obligations, you know, they have other things they want to do. You know, Nomura's life isn't Kingdom Hearts.
Or is it?
So there's no reason, you know, to harass them or anything.
The only other thing, I guess, and I think I don't have anything else to say after this. Do you have anything you want to bring up in terms of Kingdom Hearts? Anything you feel like we didn't touch on? Totally, you know.
I'm trying to think. Let me look at the games really quickly. I have them all on my shelf.
That's a true fan right there.
I have them all right here. Not that I can think of. No. I guess maybe I could give a soft recommendation for the mobile game.
Okay, the gacha game, or
the gacha game.
I'm not into gachas, so that's, I know I'd never probably touch it. I purposely stay away also because of the whole, you know,
like the predatory.
Aspect. Yeah, go ahead.
I started it during the New Year's event. I got so many free pulls. I'm like 200 like levels into the world, and like it's kind of like this weird like action turn-based hybrid. I'm like 200 levels in, and I'm still just one-shotting everything in my first attack because the pull rate is so like high in that game that I got everything I needed right away. It's kind of ridiculous. And so then I'm just playing it for the story, right? I'm not like, there's like all these harder modes and raids and stuff, and I don't give a crap about any of that. I am playing it for the story. And it's definitely like kind of important. And I do think that, and here's what I wanted to mention earlier with 3, which I don't know how you feel about. So I guess I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
But I think one of the like most Nomura, but also like fucking most genius directing decisions I've ever seen in a game was what he did with the Union Cross names in 3. The scene where he had like, he has like a bunch of keyblades that are representing all the players of the mobile game come in, and so then you're pressing triangle and it's using each player's keyblade.
That scene was so cool. Like when I was like I remember, because I didn't remember it. I was watching the cutscenes and I was rewatching that scene, and I was like, you know, what is that in the corner? I'm like, oh, that's right. And then I remember when I was playing that, and I was like, you know, I'm like shooting all these things continuously, and I didn't know like, you know, what I'm shooting, and then I'm like looking at the side, and then I see all the names of the keyblades on there, and I'm like, this is so cool. And there's an actual limit probably. There's just a lot of these. And I'm just
Yeah,
like,
and you realize that like the moment when it clicks and you realize like these are the mobile game players. And like I thought it was such a cool way of using like the community and using, this game and kind of turning, because we were talking about all these characters from all these different games. It kind of turns all the people who are playing the mobile game into a character now. And so now they feel rewarded for playing it too. And so I wanted to mention that Kingdom Hearts does do things to make the mobile game feel kind of relevant, even if, probably the best way to get the story is to read about it on the wiki or to like watch a YouTube video of some guy who's played it all and goes over it, because it is a little much. There's a lot to it. And a lot of it is.
I have heard because I was looking up, and not to cut you off either, but right before this, I was looking up like what's the shortest Kingdom Hearts game. And like I think the mobile game ranked really high, or it was the longest game. It had like 99 plus hours because you can just kind of keep playing.
Yeah, it's really long and the story is really spaced out in it. And now inside the one mobile game, there's two mobile games. Because there's the gacha that's set during like the Keyblade War where you're a member of it. And I didn't know this as I started, but Chirathi, the little like bear guy, he's your helper in the mobile game.
Okay. Yeah, because we Chirathi, right? The little stuff. Yeah, me and my fiance were talking about this right before this because we were again watching the cutscenes together, and we were like, I think that's the voice of what's her name? Kari from Digimon in English, season 1 or season 2. And I'm like, you're right. That sounds exactly like her. Her voice has not changed. So that was it. Random tidbit. But so the story is like super spaced out. So you haven't even gotten the full story.
No. No.
So wait, does this story tie into back cover and?
Yeah, because it's set during that time period. So it's during like the Keyblade War, like the guys with the animal masks, all that. That's why it's I'm pretty sure that's why it's key back cover, because it's like Union Cross. It's like the same like imagery and stuff.
So that's why. This basically doesn't tie into 3. It's gonna tie into the subsequent games after.
Yeah, which is why I started playing it, because I'm like, this is definitely gonna be important. And I know that then there's another game that I've heard is a little bit more condensed and a little bit more just story. That's about it's a game that takes place with like young Xehanort and young Araquis. That's about like them training and stuff. So it's kind of set during the time period that like their chess game is in the opening to 3. And I haven't started that one yet, but that one also I assume is going to be important, which means Xehanort's going to continue to be important since they released a game after 3 that's about Xehanort, where like you play as him. So,
that is that game. That is, wow. And so the game mechanics are fun, but it's not like hack and slash.
Yeah, it's a mobile game. You like walk up and you like swipe your finger on the screen to attack everyone, or if you have a card, because like you get the cards, and the cards are either Disney characters or Kingdom Hearts characters or Final Fantasy characters. And if you like grab the card, you do like a special move. So like I have like a Kairi one where I do like her like big Keyblade blast that she does when if you use her in Remind and you do her Keyblade transformation, she gets like this big like explosion, or maybe it's her shot lock. Whatever, it's one of those. Yeah. And you just use like her ability, and it does a lot of damage. So
the actual like the bits where you actually get the story parts in the game, because as you said, like it really doesn't sound like the gameplay is that great. It's more of the actual bits of information that you're getting. Is that delivered to you like just in text? Is there actual cutscenes? Is it just using kind of in-game graphics with the little,
Yeah, it's like a. I mean, it's like a kind of like a visual novel mobile game, not like a VN, but like it's text based, and you'll see like the little sprites walking around. And then sometimes they'll pop up bigger as they talk, and then a lot of times you'll see like the sprites moving around and doing things.
I'll have to.
But yeah, I mean, there's no voice; it's all text. I mean, if you're not into gacha, I probably wouldn't recommend. I'm not normally into gacha either. I'm only playing it because I'm a Kingdom Hearts fan.
I get that. I mean, what haven't I done for Kingdom Hearts at this point? But I every day I see Genshin Impact being played in my living room, and I walk away. I fighting every. Just like, nope, not doing it. I recovered from trading card games years ago. I don't need another addiction.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would definitely recommend then just looking up the story. There's
do you spend money? I guess it's a gacha game, so you spend money on it.
You can. Right? I haven't. Because I smart. Like the big thing with gachas is like a lot of it's when you get into them, right? And if you get into it, there was both a new player event and the New Year's event going on at the same time at the beginning of the year. I got so many free pulls that I have more good characters than I can actively equip onto myself right now. So I have to use like the free upgrades you get while playing to upgrade like my inventory so I can continue to use like the good characters I have. So I'm nowhere close to that point of like even considering having to spend money. Like I haven't hit a paywall at all.
That's good. That's good. So, you've managed to kind of get everything you need without spending money. The best way to play.
Yeah.
And then the only other thing I have left to mention about Kingdom Hearts, which I think we covered it at all. It's you really have to kind of keep track of the games. It's complex, but there's a way to make sense out of most of it. Maybe Tetsuya Nomura did leave some lingering questions so you could keep playing and find out in the next game. But the only thing I didn't touch on in Kingdom Hearts is the music, because the music in Kingdom Hearts is one of probably the best
so
things
good
in it.
Attracted
to me in it in the first place. I remember even before I played Kingdom Hearts, ever touched the game, the thing that always stayed in my head was simple and clean. Like I'd hear the commercial,
what a
Tadokara song. Yeah, that Passion in Kingdom Hearts 2, and even just the OST, like when in the game, it's always like, it always moves me. It's always like reminiscent. It's always, it's really good.
I mean, Yoko that's what Nomura even said. The reasoning, like part of his reasoning for Melody of Memory was he's like, Yoko Shimomura always does such a good job with the soundtracks that I wanted to make a game celebrating that. And so the whole point of the game is celebrating the music. And I mean, every stage. I remember they recently added the Kingdom Hearts 3 soundtrack to like Apple Music and Spotify, like around the time Melody of Memory came out. And I spent like days where the only thing I was listening to were like my favorite songs that I remembered from 3, like just certain worlds themes or boss themes and stuff. And so the music's really good, and I definitely like it.
That's actually a good sell for the playing Memory of Melody. Actually, So now I'm like, oh, maybe I should play it.
Well, they did a really cool thing leading up to the game coming out, where every day for like 30 days, Yoko Shimomura was revealing like one little thing about about 30 different tracks in the series. So every day when one would come out, I would go read it, and then I would listen to the song. Like I look up the song on YouTube and listen to it so that I would know what song it was.
Like I feel like Kingdom Hearts does a good job with its music, especially fitting the themes, because it's always like the music is always it fits really well in those scenes that are supposed to be like kind of inspirational and like heartfelt and appeal to something like higher, right. We can be better, or we can, if we just believe and all that stuff. And I don't know. So that's one of, I think its strongest points of, that how it sells its scenes and what it does.
Yeah, I think the hardest sell I can give the music in Kingdom Hearts is they announced that Skrillex was going to be working on one of the songs for 3, and everyone lost their mind, and then the song ended up being a banger. Like, it's actually such a good song, even though it has Skrillex tied to it.
Yeah, I have it. I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's up there. Like it's good. There was a time where I'm not listening to it anymore. Unfortunately, I still have it on my Apple Music library. I had it both. I would listen to both in the Japanese and the English, and I would just switch off between both. It was really good. Which one's your favorite Kingdom Hearts song?
Are we talking about the opening songs or the specifically like in-game songs? Because I have a different answer for both.
Oh, okay. Opening.
It's the Birth by Sleep remix of Simple and Clean, specifically.
Okay. That's I think I have that one. I think I really like
it. It's a little bit more EDM based than like the original one. It's a lot more upbeat, and I really like that version.
I think that was my favorite. I don't know. I just forgot what the remix was called. I think I know which one you're talking about. That one's really good.
And then
Simple and Clean remixes are really good, actually.
My favorite in-game song, unsurprisingly, is Roxas's theme. But that's mainly because it plays during his boss fight in Final Mix 2. I was gonna mention there's a boss fight against Roxas in The World That Never Was. So like right at the end of the game, there's like a boss fight that's not in the original, and his theme, which is like this kind of sad and somber theme, that's just like a piano and a flute, plays during his boss fight, and it I like can't listen to that song without thinking of the boss fight and thinking about Roxas and everything, and it
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah, and I just remembered that 3. It actually came with, it was 2 songs. It was the one with Skrillex, and then which was the opening song. I
Yeah.
forgot the name, and then there was Utada Hikaru's "Don't Think Twice," and that was
Yeah.
played.
Which was the ending song, which
there you
I
go,
wasn't
ending
expecting because they were using "Don't Think Twice" in every trailer leading up to the game. They would always
Yeah.
play it, so I thought it was going to be the opening song,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, like I'm playing the entire game and it doesn't play until the end. And
I think I liked. I don't know. I liked Skrillex's song, but with her, but I think I ended up liking "Don't Think Twice" even better. That's the one I'm thinking of that I was listening to in Japanese and in English. I think.
Yeah.
I like that
one. They're
lot.
both in. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about on Apple Music. There's like the album that has both songs in the English and Japanese versions.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of them, it just says English version and Japanese version, and the other one actually has 2 different titles because one of them is its Japanese title.
Exactly.
Its
That's what
title.
I'm thinking of. Yeah. And yeah, that's all I got.
I don't think I have much more to say.
All right, so thank you guys for tuning in. This was super fun.
Yeah, I had a great time.
Thanks for joining me, Vindy. If you want to see more of Vindy, you can check him out on his Twitch channel. He says he's been doing a lot of streaming. So that's twitch.tv/VindyVondo. And if you want to tune in for my next stream, that will be next Saturday at the usual time. So I'll see you guys later.
Adios.
Bye, guys. Let me just... Whoop. I have to find the end broadcast. Hold on. I'm still on. Oh, there's my mouse. Okay. All right. Now I'm actually heading out. See you guys.